What is up, you spooky bitches? We are back and we have another episode of the Hello Sidney podcast here, a podcast for horror lovers where we discuss any and all things horror. And it's me, your girl, Sidney. Happy Friday. Happy mid-July. What the fuck? Like, wasn't it just the 4th of July like a second ago? What is going on? The summer just goes by so fast. Shark Month has been going by so fast. I think this week is actually Shark Week. I think that's going on. That's what inspired this being Shark Month. Oh, I just lied to you. Yeah, I gave you false information. So it's actually starting on Sunday, July 20th, and it'll go through the 26th. So we're almost at Shark Week, which is a very exciting time. And we're continuing our conversation on Shark Month this month with The Shallows, which is a movie that came out in 2016. And this is a shark movie that I actually very much enjoy. And that's interesting because I usually prefer shark movies that have like practical effects in terms of the shark, like Jaws, obviously, like you can't beat that. But I think this movie, I think the shark design is so incredible and it's completely digital. Like it's a CGI shark, but I think it looks very realistic for the most part, and I think it looks genuinely terrifying. And I would say this honestly is probably, other than Jaws, might be my favorite shark design of a shark movie ever, and that's pretty big because I watch a lot of freaking shark movies. So The Shallows came out again in 2016. It's about an hour and 27 minutes long. It has a 6.3 on IMDb and a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty damn good for a horror movie, especially a shark movie that is not Jaws. This is one of the many shark movies, though, that does contribute to the whole, like, sharks are just, like, bloodthirsty, man-hungry creatures, and not the case. They do kind of explain that in a way in this movie that I like, though. Like, there's a reason behind it. Enough rambling. Let's get into it and you'll see exactly what I mean in a little bit. So The Shallows opens up and we're on a beach and you can tell it's very early morning. Like it's still kind of dark out. The sun is coming up and we see this little kid playing soccer on this abandoned beach. He's the only one on there. And all of a sudden we see this helmet with a camera, like a GoPro on it, kind of washing up on the shore. And this kid ends up going over because he sees it and he grabs the helmet and we can see that it has bites in it. Like it has bite marks in the helmet, through the helmet, and there's a broken surfboard in the sand not far away as well. And this kid takes out the GoPro and he watches the video, and what he sees is these two guys surfing, and then all of a sudden one guy starts screaming for help in Spanish, and suddenly he is pulled underwater, and we see this absolutely terrifying image of the shark coming at the camera, opening its mouth full force. And it's absolutely fucking terrifying. And like right off the bat, they get me hooked. Like I love the opening of this movie because you see that shark. I'll try to find a picture of it and put it up, like the still of the video, because this is my worst fucking nightmare. This is truly my worst nightmare. This is why I hate seeing videos that like you're above water and then it goes underwater, because I always feel that something is going to come at the camera like this. Because of this movie, this scene alone fucked me up 3 seconds into the movie. So after that terrifying 3 seconds of a clip, we cut to the title card. And when we come back, we meet our main character, who is going to be Nancy. And Nancy is played by Blake Lively. And I'll be honest, I'm not a Blake Lively fan, not only like personally, just in the way that she kind of comes across in interviews and stuff, but I've never liked her acting. Like, and I grew up in the age of Gossip Girl with her playing Serena Vanderwoodson, and I like hated her character most of the time, so that might have contributed to it, but I just like have never really thought she's a good actor. But I will give it to her for this movie. I gotta give her credit. I think she did well in this movie, and she also did basically all of her own stunts, and that's very difficult. And I think it's very difficult in general as an actor to carry a movie when you are the single actor in the movie pretty much, and you're in one place. So I will give her credit for this movie. So we meet Nancy. She's in a car with this guy, and she's looking at pictures of her mom on a beach from the 90s. Like it's all like mom, 1991, whatever. And the driver asks her if that's her because they look alike, because it's her mom. And she says, no, it's my mom. She came to this beach when she found out that she was pregnant with me. So this is kind of our beach. That's why I'm going here. And she shows the driver pictures of her and her little sister. And they're in Mexico, so nobody really speaks English. So she's able to kind of get by in Spanish a little bit. And this guy tells her in Spanish and translates in kind of broken English, like, what you're seeing out here is for your eyes, like not for your phone. So basically put your fucking phone phone down and take in your scenery. And she's like, sorry, I'm an American, which like so accurate. So as she's on her phone or as she's looking out the window, whatever, her phone rings and it's a text from her friend saying, I'm so hungover, I'm not coming, which like terrible friend. First of all, because a lot of this shit could have been avoided had your friend like actually gone through with the plans. And also, this obviously is a very important moment for Nancy because she's going to this beach and you can already kind of tell right off the bat that her mom is no longer with her. And we do get that confirmed a bit later on. But just from the way she's talking about her and looking at these pictures, you already get that impression. And like this obviously is a special thing to her to go to this beach and you're like, no, I'm hungover. I'm not coming. You fucking bitch. We're never going on vacation together again. And you're actually no longer my friend. Fuck right off. So she gets that and she just kind of accepts it and she's still going to go anyway. And she asks the driver what the name is of the secret beach that they're going to. And he won't tell her. Like this is a very secret beach. The locals keep it under wraps, so he won't tell her the name. And eventually they get to the beach and it's absolutely beautiful. I believe where they filmed this was Australia, which makes this a lot scarier because everything in Australia is trying to kill you all the time from what I hear. So like filming this in the ocean and on the beach in Australia, terrifying. So the beach is practically empty with the exception of two guys that are surfing, and the driver gets out. His name is Carlos. They introduce themselves to each other, Carlos and Nancy, and she tries to pay him and he's like, no, it's not a big deal. Like I was coming this way anyway. Like Carlos is a really nice dude. And now at this point, school gets brought up because he's like, oh, where'd you learn to speak Spanish? Because she's able to kind of get by with her Spanish. And she kind of makes a joke about how, well, I was in medical school, but there wasn't really any Spanish there. But, you know, when I was younger. So we find out that she was in medical school, emphasis on was. And he asks her like how she's going to get out of there, like how she's going to leave the beach. And she says Uber. And he says, who's Uber? Which I think is hilarious. So she gets her surfboard out of the car. He leaves and she goes to the beach and she gets ready. She watches the guys surfing and they're like having a grand old time and the waves look great. And Nancy puts on her wetsuit top and she goes out into the water and she swims out and we get a POV shot from below her. So we already know that something is under there. Like we know that something's going to come up eventually for her. So those two guys wave to her and they like tell her to come over, and one is able to speak English, so one is able to communicate with her, and she tells them that she's from Texas, but they won't tell her the name of the beach either. Like everybody is keeping this beach on lock and key. And she asks them like, is there anything gnarly that I should know about out here? And they tell her, like they point out these rocks that come out when the tide gets low, and also be careful of the coral here because if you step on it or you hit it, it stings like jellyfish. So they like kind of try to wave her over and tell her like, oh, the waves break better over here. And she's like, no, I'm good. Like, I'll just stay here. And they're like, oh, might be a little tough for a little girl from Texas. And she's like, yeah, I think I can handle it. And the wave comes and one of the guys has the GoPro helmet on. So we know, of course, this is the guy that the helmet belonged to in the opening. And he turns his camera on. He swims for the wave and she swims for it too. And she surfs and they all start surfing together. And we get this surfing montage. And like, you can tell like, they're like, oh shit, like, sorry, you're not just a little girl from Texas. Like you actually know what you're doing. And now this is the only sequence that Blake Lively didn't do her own stunts because she can't surf. So they actually had a professional surfer who is this 19-year-old girl who's just like a badass bitch and is just a professional surfer. Her name is Isabella Nichols, and she taught Blake like how to wax her surfboard because she was doing that. She taught her how to paddle properly so that all of those close-up shots Blake could actually do and look accurate, but the actual surfing pieces are Isabella Nichols. So they surf for a little bit, they hang out, they laugh, they have a blast, and eventually Nancy gets out of the water. She's like eating an apple, she's watching the guys, she looks at pictures of her mom again, and eventually her sister calls her, or she calls her sister, whichever way, and they're FaceTiming, and she's like, I'm at mom's beach, and she shows her the beach. They talk about how beautiful it is, and how she wishes her sister was here, and her sister is like, when are you going to take me surfing? Like, I want to go out with you. And eventually their dad comes over, and she tells him that she's in Mexico, and he's like, I just don't get it. Like, what are you trying to do? And like, you dropped out of med school. Like, what is your plan? He's like, you love helping people. Like, that's what you want to do. And she comes back and she's like, not everyone can be helped. And he's like, don't make this about her. So of course now we understand that her mom died of some sort of illness, and her dad tries to tell her like, you should stay in it. Like, she was a fighter and other people fight too. And Nancy says, yeah, but she fought too hard. And for what? It all ended the same way. Like, it was useless. So you can tell, like, her mom's death really affected her and, like, affected her path in life very deeply. So her dad kind of asks her, like, just come back. Like, we'll figure this out together. We'll get through it. And eventually she just says, like, you know what? I got to go. Love you. Bye. And she hangs up. So she gears up and she gets ready to go out again. And her friend, as she's walking to the water, so she doesn't see this text, but we, the audience, see it ping up. Her awful fucking friend texts her, hey, gonna go meet up with that guy from last night. Don't wait up for me. So now we're understanding that her friend is not going to be in the hotel or whatever anymore. So she's not going to know if Nancy doesn't come back. So that's what this is setting up. So she gets out on the water, she's waiting for a wave, and the guys are going in, and they're like, oh, it's about to get dark soon, like, you should probably go in. And she says, yeah, I'm just going to catch one more, and then I'm out of here. So they get back to shore, they start packing up, and she's sitting, and she's waiting for a wave, and the camera cuts to underwater, and we see her sitting on the board. And we see that her board has this smiley face on it that's very specific, and we recognize it as the board that was in the sand in the opening scene. So we know this is somehow going to wash to shore. So we cut back to a POV from underwater, and we see this POV getting closer to her, and you think it's going to be a shark, but suddenly these dolphins jump up around her, so it's a fake out. And she ends up swimming out a little bit more, and she's near that rock that now it's low tide, and she can kind of see that rock that guy warned her about. And as she gets closer to this rock, she also sees something floating, and when she approaches it, it's a dead whale, and it's just floating in the middle of the water. There's these birds all over it. And something startles these birds, something startles these seagulls, and they all fly by, and they fly by her, which like startles her and causes her to fall off her surfboard. And as she falls off, we cut to underwater and we see this like black shadow swim by. So we know what this is. So Nancy turns and a wave is coming. So she starts swimming. She gets back on her board and she gets up and she starts surfing this wave. And this part is fucking terrifying too. And this is why I will never surf. Like, not that I ever planned on it really, but like this movie really turned me off from surfing because in the wave, you see the shadow of this shark, like the silhouette of this shark in the water, and it comes towards her and suddenly it like hits her board and she doesn't see it. So she doesn't know what hits her board, but she completely wipes out. She falls in the water and it's like a bad wipeout. Like she hits all the rocks that are underneath her. Like her board gets like broken, like the thread or whatever, the fucking tether breaks from her ankle. So eventually she comes up like gasping for air because she was just tumbling around under the water, and she swims over to her board. She finds it. It's still next to her. And the thing I love about this movie and this moment specifically and kind of for the rest of the movie is that we are water level with her. So whoever's filming this movie is like in the water filming her. So we feel like we're also in imminent danger because we know that there's a shark swimming around underneath and we're like in the water with her. And it honestly contributes to the anxiety of this movie. And the interesting thing about this is 90% of this movie was filmed in a tank and only about 10% was filmed actually like in the ocean or on location. And I think that is so incredible because it sounds so corny, and I said this to somebody a couple days ago, but like film is just so magical. Like the illusion that it can create in your head when like this whole thing was filmed in a tank and it doesn't seem like it at all. I never would have guessed that. So eventually she goes to get up on her board when suddenly she is pulled underwater and we see her be pulled under and just blood comes up all around her in the water and she's screaming under there. We kind of get this like slow-mo shot of her struggling to reach for the surface and we kind of see like the back of this shark and it's biting her leg, and eventually she manages to get back up to the surface. The thing lets her go and we're again like water level, like the waves are like rushing like flooding over the camera. Like we feel like we're in the water with her, and she starts swimming frantically to where that whale was, and the fin is following her. We see a fin pop up and start swimming after her, and she's struggling to get on top of this whale. She's trying to grab it. It's slippery. She's struggling, and eventually she manages to get up on top of the whale just as the shark passes her by, and she gets up and she looks for a minute, and we see that her leg is bleeding. She's been bitten. And she takes her tether thing that she had to her surfboard that's now broken off of her ankle, and she makes a tourniquet out of it and she attaches it to her leg. Now she turns back to the shore and she sees those two guys getting in their Jeep and driving away. And she tries to like stand up or like get up on the whale, and she starts waving her arms frantically and she's screaming at them for help, saying like, stop, I'm right here. And the car stops and she's like, oh, thank God. And you think they're going to like get out and help her, but they just get out to fix something in the trunk and then they drive away. They can't hear her. They can't see her. They do not notice her and they leave. So now she's completely alone on this beach. And the shark is not done with her yet. It knows that she is up on this whale, and suddenly the whale is hit by something and she almost falls off. And that something, of course, being the shark. And she almost falls off of it. And then all of a sudden the shark starts moving the whale and we see the fin, and eventually it swims away. And she like kind of takes in her surroundings, like looking at what she can do. She sees a buoy in the distance and she says out loud, like, that's way too far. And then she sees a rock a bit closer. It's like this little island of rocks. And that's what the guy had said, like, oh, they get exposed when low tide comes in. So she plans to swim for that, and she looks and she sees the shark coming, and this shark bursts up through the water and hits the whale to the point where the whale completely like tips over. And at the moment that it does that, she makes a jump for it and she dives into the water and she makes a swim for this rock. So eventually she gets to the rock and she's struggling to get up, and she steps on that coral, which that guy warned her about as well, that stings like jellyfish. So she steps on the coral and she screams, but eventually she manages to get up onto this rock after this like very difficult, stressful struggle. And when she gets up onto the rock, she sees that there's a little seagull up there as well, because we see that a seagull like got hurt in the process, like in all this chaos, and his little wing is injured and he's got blood on it, and he's on this rock with her as well. And this seagull is literally a professional actor. He has an IMDb page. His name is Sully Seagull, and she names him something different in this movie eventually, but his name is Sully Seagull. He's in this movie, and he was in The Lighthouse as well. Like, this seagull has more acting credits than most people. And apparently he lives in like a seagull sanctuary, and he's literally like trained to be in movies, which is just fucking incredible. So she catches her breath for a minute, and then she stands up on this rock, and the camera kind of does a 180, and we see that there is absolutely nothing around her. Like, the shore is like 300 yards away. The buoy is like 30 to 40 yards away. And like, she is just on this rock on an island in the middle of fucking nowhere, essentially. Like, there is nothing around her. So she looks down and she looks at the wound on her leg, which is bleeding pretty aggressively. And this part is fucking disgusting, honestly, I will say, because she knows that she needs to tie this wound up somehow because it's just going to keep bleeding. And again, remember, she was in medical school, so at least she has that on her side. She kind of knows what she's doing. But she takes out her earrings, and she has this necklace that has points on both sides of it, so it's a bit sharp. And she sterilizes all of it in the salt water, and she starts talking to herself as if she's talking to a patient. Like, okay, you're not going to feel a thing. Like, we're going to put in a suture. And she stitches her leg with the fucking earring, which, first of all, brilliant move. Second of all, this scene is so gross because like the blood oozing out of her leg, it just looks so real. And I'm assuming they use practical effects for this gross, wounded, bloody leg, and it fucking looks so realistic, and it's honestly fucking gross. It kind of makes me cringe. So eventually she takes off her wetsuit top and she wraps it around her leg as well to help stop the bleeding. And she just waits. Now she just waits. And eventually night falls and we see her on this rock and she's just shivering because now it's freezing. There's no sun. And she takes off the wetsuit that she has on her leg and she puts it on her shoulders, and her leg is like purple. Like, her leg looks fucking disgusting. Even though it's kind of dark, you can still see it. And she uses her sharp necklace again to rip off the arm of the wetsuit, and she takes the tourniquet off to let some of the blood flow for a little bit. And she does have like a digital watch on, and we can see that it's 6:13 a.m. and we get a title card saying that it's low tide, so this rock is still very much exposed. And she eventually like puts the tourniquet back on her leg, and she uses the sleeve of her wetsuit to put like a compression sleeve on her leg. So she has to work that up her leg as she's like screaming in pain. The thing is fucking purple and like swollen and disgusting. And eventually she gets it up her leg and she just drops like the poor girl. She falls asleep, and eventually she wakes up to crabs crawling all over her, like as if she's not in a bad enough situation. And she like hits one with her hand and it dies. And she looks at it and she hesitates and she looks at the seagull and she slowly puts the crab in her mouth. And like, listen, I have a lot more meat on my bones than Blake Lively does. And I think I would have been able to survive with not eating for more than 24 hours. Like she had not just eaten, and an apple isn't a whole lot of sustenance, but like, I think it would have taken me to be absolutely fucking starving to eat a raw dead crab. But she fucking did it, but it doesn't matter because she throws it up immediately and the seagull proceeds to eat the thrown up crab. Sully, come on. Now, fun fact about this, they are not allowed to kill animals whatsoever for movies, even if it's a crab, goldfish, doesn't matter what it is, you can't do it. And the CGI, when she actually smashes the thing, that's CGI, but the crab that she eats is real because the director had the crew like scour the beach in the mornings for like crabs that died naturally. So this was actually a crab that they had found on the shore that just died naturally, and that's what they used for this. So it's now getting a bit lighter out, and she looks out and she sees something floating in the water, and she looks out the other way and she like kind of says out loud, like, are you still there? Like she wonders if the shark is still there. And she sees the thing in the water getting closer to her, and eventually we can see that it's her surfboard. And she looks around and she like slowly starts to put her feet in the water. Like she's gonna go for it. She puts her feet in the water, and we see her kind of like standing on the rock, and she's kind of like waist deep, and eventually she goes fully in, like shoulder deep, and she starts slowly swimming towards her board as it gets closer to her. Like the current is pushing it towards her, and we're getting an underwater shot. Like we know this thing is going to come back. It's just a matter of when. And suddenly, as she's going towards it, she sees a fin pop up behind the board and start coming towards her. So she turns and she swims back to the rock, and she like frantically climbs up it, and she hits her leg in the process, but she makes it, and she's screaming in pain because she again hit her bum ass leg. And underneath, we see the shark swim by again. So it just missed her. And it's almost like the thing is playing fucking cat and mouse with her at this point, because it definitely could have gotten her right there if it really wanted to. And she ends up looking on the shore, and she notices that there is a man passed out on the shore. And she starts screaming frantically, like trying to wake this guy up. And we cut to the shore, and we see this guy passed out, and he starts to wake up, and he's got a bottle of alcohol in his hand. So we understand that this man passed out drunk on the beach, and he turns to her and he sees her like jumping and waving and screaming, and he kind of laughs and he waves to her as she screams for help. She's like, call the police, like my phone, backpack, my phone. Like she's trying to talk to this man, and eventually he understands it enough to where he starts going for it. He goes for her backpack, and he gets to her bag, and he starts rummaging through, and he finds her phone, and he puts it in his pocket, and then puts her backpack on and starts walking away. So this motherfucker is now robbing this girl, and she's watching from the rock, and she like understands what he's doing as he puts on her backpack and starts to walk away. And she's like, please, no, like you can have it. Just call the police. Like I don't care about the fucking stuff. So as this guy is going to walk away, he sees her surfboard floating in the water. And for some reason, he decides that he wants that too. So he starts to go into the water, fully clothed, by the way. Like he's wearing pants and like a fucking wife beater shirt. And he starts going into the water. And she sees this, and she starts yelling at him like, no, there's a shark, like go back. And he either can't hear her or doesn't understand or doesn't give a fuck, because he keeps going in, and eventually he gets to the board. And this guy, like it's such a fucking messy moment because he's trying to get on the board. He's obviously like not athletic or has never like ridden a surfboard in his life. He's like a larger man. He's like flopping off of it. He's probably still fucking drunk. But eventually he manages to get on it, and he starts swimming back to shore. And we get an underwater shot of something coming towards him. And then suddenly we're back at Nancy's POV, and she's watching him, and he's just gone. Like he was there and now he's gone. And I really love this scene because, again, I think the unknown is a lot scarier. We focus on her face, and she's crying because she knows that this thing just pulled this guy under. And suddenly we hear something like breach the surface and start thrashing, and we hear faint screams as she just like watches this scene and whimpers and cries. So we know that she's watching this man get eaten by the shark. And like, how fucking terrifying is that, knowing that that thing is keeping you from safety? And like, that's what you have to deal with. Like how utterly fucking terrifying. And again, I actually really like the fact that we don't see it. And the director of this movie, that's purposeful. Like, he specifically said this movie is it's not a creature feature. It's about survival and kind of like growth, which we're going to see at the end. And I really do like that, how the focus isn't necessarily on the shark. When we do see the shark, for the very short time that we do, it's utterly fucking terrifying. But I like that they focus more on like her and her survival and her emotions and her journey. So we cut to the shore and we see this guy crawling back to shore. But when we zoom out, we see that his bottom half is detached and he dies. Like, this shark literally bit him in fucking half. And now we cut back to Nancy and we see on her watch that it's 12 p.m. and we get a title card saying that it's 6 hours to high tide. And when high tide comes, this rock is fucking gone. So she's going to have to figure something out. And now the seagull starts squawking and that wakes Nancy up, and she refers to him as Steven Seagal, which obviously is a play on Steven Seagal. And apparently Blake Lively came up with that on her own and they thought it was so funny they kept it in. So she wakes up and she sees those two guys from the previous day coming back, and they start getting into the water to surf. And Nancy at this point looks like shit, honestly. Like, her lips are purple, like she is fucking falling apart. And she starts to try and yell at these guys to get out of the water. She's like, "Go back, shark, shark." And one of the guys is like, "Don't worry, there's no sharks out here." Bitch, if this woman is stranded on a rock, clearly looking like she's been through the fucking ringer, and she is screaming at you, "Shark," there's a fucking shark out there. Ugh, men sometimes, am I right? They just don't listen. So she keeps screaming and telling them to go get help, and they're just not listening to her. And one does turn back and start to swim to shore. But it's to no avail, because suddenly the shark jumps up and breaches the water and just fucking bites him and eats him and brings him underwater. And this is really the first time that we see the shark actually like attack somebody, and it's utterly fucking terrifying. And now the second guy, who's the guy with the GoPro helmet, he starts swimming frantically towards where Nancy is, and she gets to the edge of the rock and she's like, "Swim, swim," like she's reaching her arms out to try and grab him, to try and help him. But then suddenly he disappears under the surface, and she looks for him and she's looking around and it's silence. And then suddenly his board bursts up, broken in half. Like, this thing has been now bitten in half. And Nancy again just looks, and she's fucking devastated. And suddenly this guy bursts up from the water on the side of the rock, and he's screaming for help. And she grabs him by the arms and tries to pull him up. But again, it's to just no avail, because he's pulled under. And we see that his camera on his helmet is filming. So we're kind of getting it through like the lens of that at some points, which I think is cool. And that's where the camera footage from the beginning came. So we know this guy just got eaten by the shark underwater that came at him. So poor Nancy, all of her efforts are absolutely useless. Everybody that could have possibly helped is now dead. And it's now 3 p.m. and we see that it's 3 hours till high tide. And Nancy just seems like honestly delusional and just unwell at this point. Like, this poor girl is bleeding out. She's all sorts of fucked up. And the sun is just beating down on her. So she takes part of that broken board that popped up and she kind of shields herself from the sun. And again, she just waits. And eventually we see that it's 5:56 p.m. and now it's 25 minutes to high tide. And suddenly she sees something surface, and it's that guy's helmet with the GoPro on it. And she looks and she sees the fin circling as well. So at this point, the seagull's still there. Like, this poor seagull has been with her the whole time because his little wing is broken, so he can't fly away. And she ends up taking him. She picks him up and she's like, "I'm going to help you. Like, this is going to be uncomfortable for a second. It's got to be just like a dislocated shoulder, right?" And she takes his wing and she like snaps it back into place, and it works. But the thing like bites her, obviously, because it doesn't know any better. But she's like, "Now you got a chance." And she realizes that the tide is coming in at this point, and she sees the helmet near the rock, and she sees the shark swimming, and we get this overhead shot of it swimming, and the thing is just fucking massive. Like, we see the shadow of it underwater, and it is just massive. And it's even that is just like a terrifying shot. So she starts seeing it circle, and she has timed it, and she has now seen it circle 3 times, and she has timed that it takes 32 seconds for it to complete a full circle. So she's like, "You know what? I'm using this to my advantage." And she starts a timer on her watch, and she swims to this other rock towards where the helmet is. And she tries to grab it, and she can barely reach it. And as she's going to grab it, she falls in the water, and she hits that coral once again. So she gets fucked up by the coral again. And eventually she manages to get back on the rock as the timer is up. And the shark swims by as the helmet is still in the water. So she wasn't able to get it. So it swims by again. And she decides like, fuck it, I'm going again. So she starts the timer again and she goes back in and she reaches for the helmet again. But suddenly she gets it. And as she grabs it, the shark jumps out of the water towards her. And we see like a full shot of the shark, like kind of for the first time, like coming at her other than the video. Like that video we saw, it was coming at the guy, but now we see it like in its full form. And again, it's fucking scary looking and it breaches the water and it jumps at her and she falls off the rock that she's on and she's underwater and she's looking at the shark and she's seeing that it's trying to get at her, but it hits that coral and it obviously doesn't like that because it kind of like jumps back and swims away. So she manages to get back on her rock and we see that she has the helmet and she like hugs it and she's safe. And she looks at this camera, the GoPro on it, and she watches the video of the guy surfing and she sees the other guy like get pulled under and she sees the shark come at him. So that same footage that we saw from the opening. And she pauses it on this moment where the shark has its mouth open and comes at him and she sees that it has a hook in it. And she's like, somebody got you already. Like somebody fucking hurt you. And now she knows that she has to do something quick because the tide is coming in and she looks at the buoy and she's like, okay, that's 30 to 40 yards. That's a 1 minute swim. I can make it. I just need a head start, which like for a professional surfer, I guess that would be a 1 minute swim. I can't like, I'm very bad at spatial perception. So I can't really think of how far 30 to 40 yards is, but it seems like a lot further than a minute for somebody like me, but this is why I don't go in the ocean. So she looks at the helmet and she pulls a shark tooth out of it. And she's like, okay, I'm going to keep this. And she puts it in her shirt. She now has her like wetsuit back on. And the time is now 6:11 and it's 10 minutes to high tide. And she decides that she's going to film a video. And she starts to film this video and she's saying like, if you find this, I've been attacked by a shark. Like this is where I am. It's killed 3 people. It's circling. I swam up to its feeding ground. And that's kind of how it's explained, like why the shark is doing this. Like she wandered into its feeding ground by accident and now she's become its prey. So she starts to like explain her injury and how she's getting like gangrene in her foot. And in a few minutes, like this island that I'm on is going to be taken by the tide. And I never found out what the beach was called. So this is pretty much fucking useless because now she can't tell anybody like where this happened. So she has no fucking idea. And we never find out what the name of the beach is. And she doesn't either. But she explains that I'm going to try and swim to the buoy. And if you find this, please delete the first part and send it to this address. And she gives her dad's address and she records this goodbye message. And it's actually like a very like sad, heartfelt moment because she thinks she's going to die, of course, as anybody would in the situation. And she says goodbye to her dad and her sister, but she does tell them like, I'm going to fight like she taught us, obviously talking about her mom. And I think that's such a beautiful moment how she's now turned that trauma, which like the fact that her mom fought and like died from this illness turned her off from being in the medical field because she's like, you fight and like what purpose does it get you? Like where does it get you? And now she's in this life-threatening situation. She's like, oh, I'm gonna fight. Bro, why am I tearing up? Like that's low-key actually fucking beautiful. Like I think the message of this movie is really beautiful. Because again, it's really not a creature feature. Like you don't see the shark a whole lot. Like it's more about survival and how like her trauma of her mom dying is kind of like given her suddenly this will to live that I don't really think she knew that she had. So she finishes her message, she puts the camera back, she throws the helmet out to the water, and she puts the little seagull on a surfboard, on like half of that broken surfboard, and she sends him out too so that he can get to the shore. And now we see that the tide has come in. Like the rocks are gone. Like she's in the water, the tide has come in, and she looks out at the buoy, and she looks at the water around her, and we get an underwater shot, and we see that, again, she's like now in the water, and we see the shark swim by. And when she looks down, she sees that there is a bunch of jellyfish underneath her. So like just to make matters fucking worse, now there is a school of jellyfish underneath her where she needs to swim through. But that actually works to her advantage because she remembers the shark hitting the coral. And she's like, you didn't like that because it stung like jellyfish, which is what the guy said in the beginning. And she looks at the shark swim by and she's like, this is my head start. And she jumps in the water and she starts fucking swimming. And the shark starts following her. And she's underwater and she starts to swim through these jellyfish that are like pretty good sized jellyfish. And she just waits there for a minute and one of its tentacles hits her arm arm and burns the hell out of her, and she like screams underwater, and suddenly the jellyfish start glowing. So they're all like bioluminescent, and it's actually this really pretty shot. And suddenly the shark comes through and we see it start getting stung by these jellyfish tentacles because it can't dodge them because it's too big. And it obviously is in pain and it doesn't like it, so it swims away. And Nancy looks and she sees the bottom of the buoy and she makes a fucking swim for it. And she gets to the buoy as the fin chases behind her. And she goes to climb this buoy, and it's like this rusty ass ladder. And as she grabs one of the rungs right as she gets out of the water, it breaks and she fucking flies back. And she falls directly on top of this goddamn shark, but she thinks fast and she uses that rusty rung of the ladder to stab it. So now she's got it. And she manages to get back up on the buoy, and the shark literally jumps out of the water and throws itself onto the buoy and just smacks the ladder loose and swims away. But like, she got the upper hand, like she heard it. Now, included in her own stunts, Blake Lively was actually underwater for like a good portion of this movie. So like that portion where she's underneath the water with all the jellyfish, she was actually in a pitch black tank of water, which no fucking way. Again, like I'm not historically a fan of her as an actress, but I got to give her credit where credit is due, because like she was underneath water, pitch black water, because they kind of like CGI'd all these like glow in the dark jellyfish, so they needed like blackness to be able to do it. And she was actually holding her breath under there for the longest time, and the director was like, I was actually so impressed with how long she could hold her breath. Like, she's a fucking trooper. So all the scenes where she's underwater, like I honestly thought that was like CGI'd or something, because she's got her eyes open like she's screaming, but no, that was actually real. So Nancy gets to the buoy and she kind of gets in the middle where there's like the tower thing, so she gets in the middle of it and she sees a boat start to go by in the distance, and she sees it, and there's this box on the buoy, and she's trying to open it. It's like rusted shut. Eventually she takes that shark tooth out of her bathing suit and she manages to open the box with that, and she gets this flare out, but then the fucking bullets, like the flare bullets, the flares, I guess you would call them, fall into the water, and they're all floating on the surface. So she takes the gun and she reaches into the water, and you get like an underwater shot and you think the shark's going to come up, but it doesn't. She manages to grab the flares, and the buoy kind of like tilts as she does it, but she gets them. And she puts one of the flares in the gun and she shoots it, and the thing barely goes anywhere. Like, it's a fucking dud. And she like looks and she sees the rest of the bullets in the water, and suddenly we see her drop down in the buoy. This is actually so creative because she tied her wetsuit to the buoy and she kind of held onto it and like leaned so the buoy would fall with her, and she grabbed the bullets and she came back up. So now she has them, and she puts another one in the gun and she sends this one up, and this one actually goes up. But now the boat is like too far gone that it probably didn't see it. So she loads the gun again and she sits up, and we see the helmet wash ashore. So this is now the scene from the beginning, because we see this little kid. It's now early morning. We see this little kid playing soccer on the shore. So this is when this all went down, when she is still alive. And he sees her goodbye video explaining what happened. And she's explaining like, this is the date, like April, whatever, 2016. So he knows that that's today. Like, that's literally today. This has happened right now. And he runs away to go bring this helmet to somebody. Like, finally, she's going to fucking get help. Finally, somebody is useful and is going to help her. And Nancy, back on the buoy, kind of hears like voices echo in her head. So it's her talking about like, this is mom's beach. Some people can't be helped. Like, she was a fighter. So she's like hearing all these things about her mom. And like, that's kind of what's giving her the inspiration to fight back. So we see the shark hit the buoy, and it's connected by two chains, like to the water, like to the ground below. And one of those chains now releases. And Nancy literally is just like, And she stands up and she shoots at the shark with the flare gun. And now the whale is close. So I'm assuming the way that this happened was it's like the blubber from the whale, because the water ignites and the shark literally ignites, and it jumps up out of the water on fire and jumps back down and like puts itself out. So it doesn't get hurt by the fire necessarily. And she looks at it coming towards her and she's like, oh shit. And sure enough, the thing jumps up and starts biting at the buoy. And the buoy falls over because it's now only on one chain, and Nancy falls into the water. And when she falls into the water, she smacks her face on the buoy. And this actually happened in real life, and they kept it in the movie. And she comes up and her like nose is bleeding. So Blake Lively, when she was doing this scene, because again, she did all of her own stunts, actually smashed her face on the buoy and like screams out loud. And it looks like it fucking hurt when you know that it's real. And she comes up and she's like all bloody, and they kept it in the movie. And she's bloody for the rest of this movie because that's how she fucking looks. It's her actual blood. So the shark is now circling around the buoy that is now like sideways over in the water. And she gets in the middle again, and she looks and she waits and she looks down. And when she looks down, she sees the shark coming up towards her, which like, what a terrifying fucking sight. And the thing comes up and it starts biting the buoy again. And eventually it swims away. And she once again looks down and she sees that the buoy is still connected by one chain. And it's connected to the ocean floor, which isn't too far away. And there's like this thing connected to it that looks really sharp. It has like kind of like spikes or like metal pieces coming out of it. Like that's what the buoy is connected to. And at this moment she has an idea, and the shark jumps up and bites the buoy again. Like it is coming for her. Like it has a vengeance. Like it has a fucking bloodthirst for this woman. And Nancy gets in the water. She gets out from the middle and she grabs the chain that's on the buoy and she detaches it. And she uses the tourniquet that she had on her leg. She takes it off and she ties her wrist around this chain. And all of a sudden, when the chain lets go because it's heavy, she starts to be pulled down under the water to the bottom of the fucking ocean floor, which that alone is a fucking horror movie for me. Because if I'm attached to a chain being pulled to the bottom of the ocean, I'm dying right then and there. Like the shark can have my dead body because I'm already dead. So she's being dragged down, and the shark sees her and starts chasing her as this chain is dragging her down to this sharp point in the end, like at the bottom. And at the last minute, she gets out of the way and the shark keeps going. And sure enough, it hits that metal spike or whatever the fuck it is, and it gets impaled and it dies on the ocean floor. She fucking won. She defeated it. Now, honestly, I go back and forth about this because I do think it is a creative way of how they killed the shark, but I do just kind of find it incredibly unrealistic, as if any of this is really realistic. Like I kind of go back and forth. Now, like at first I didn't like it, but now looking at it, I'm like, that's actually kind of a badass move. Like I think this is a pretty good way to kill the shark, and it's creative. Like it's unlike anything I've seen before in a shark movie. So the thing is dead. She fucking won. And we cut back to the shore and we see that boy running through the woods, and he comes back with his dad, who is Carlos, the guy that drove her there in the beginning. And they see a body on the beach, and the kid screams, and they look at the water and they see Nancy floating in there. And Carlos runs out and he grabs her and he drags her back to shore, and he tells his son to go get help, go call for help. And Nancy is unconscious at this point, and we focus on her hand, and suddenly her hand moves and grabs the sand and she starts choking up water. So she lived. She made it. And we also see that the broken surfboard made it to shore as well with a seagull on it. So the seagull made it as well. And Nancy sits up, and we're getting this like beautiful dramatic music playing as she looks out to the water, and she has like this beautiful vision of her mom. Like it's actually like a really nice moment. And the camera cuts, and when we come back, it's 1 year later, and we see her on a beach, and this time it's in Texas where she's from. And she has a pretty gnarly ass scar on her leg from where she was attacked by this shark. And she's there with her sister. And the two of them are getting their boards ready, and her sister refers to her as doctor. So she went back to medical school. She became a doctor, and they're getting ready to go surfing together. And their dad is there as well and looks at them and is like, Mom would be proud of you. Like Mom would be so proud of you. Which, like, how beautiful is this to like come full circle like this? And she just thanks him, and she and her sister run out into the water and go surfing as Sia's Unstoppable, I think that's the song, that plays as we get this beautiful shot of the gorgeous blue water, and the credits roll and the movie ends. And my God, Nancy is a way better person than me, because first of all, I don't go in the ocean, period, even though we live in a normal universe where sharks do not have a bloodthirst for human blood. If I lived in this alternate horror movie reality where sharks are bloodthirsty and like the taste of humans and like hunt humans for fucking sport, I'm not going in the water, period, especially if it's already happened to me and I was attacked by one. Like Nancy again. It's all about like overcoming your trauma. Obviously, that's the point of this movie, and like survival and like your will to live. And I do think that's really beautiful, but Nancy is a fucking crazy person, because you could not catch me caught dead in the fucking water ever again after that debacle. So back to the seagull, I find it so funny that they actually had multiple seagull actors. Like Blake Lively had one stunt double for like the surfing scenes. Meanwhile, the seagull had two stunt doubles, which I think is fucking hilarious. Like one was used for the squawking scenes because Sully Seagull is like so chill, he doesn't make noise. So they had to get one that would like squawk. And they had another one for I don't even know what. And I guess Sully the seagull, like seagulls in general are very clean creatures. So it was very difficult to keep the fake blood on him because he kept like cleaning himself off, poor guy. Something that makes this movie and like Blake Lively's performance even more impressive to me is she was pregnant at the time. Like she was pregnant with her second kid at the time of this movie. Obviously she's not far along because she's in a bathing suit the whole time and she does not look pregnant whatsoever. Like her stomach is flat, but like still the fact that you did all of this shit pregnant, girl, I could never. I could never be pregnant, period. Never mind pregnant, holding my breath in a tank, smashing my face on a buoy in the middle of the Australian wild ocean. Like, shout out. It could not be me. Similar to Jaws, the shark in this movie only has 4 minutes of screen time, which is absolutely fucking incredible. Like, I love when it's a shark movie, but there's not so much focus on the shark. Like, it's more like the unknown and like the shadows of it moving underwater, I think are so effective. But when you do see the shark, it's actually modeled after a female shark because the director and the people who worked on this movie think that they look a lot more intimidating, which like if you do look it up, like they do. Like female sharks are a lot more physically scary looking, and they took like months to perfect the look of this shark. Like they watched like every Shark Week special there was, like, and I think honestly, again, I give them credit for this because I think even though it's digital, the shark looks fucking incredible. I really do. And again, it's utterly terrifying. Like that just GoPro scene in the beginning of it coming at the camera with its fucking mouth open full force. Like, goodbye. My own personal hell, my worst nightmare. So yeah, guys, that's The Shallows. This is one of my favorite movies where it's just like one person in one space. Like I really do love that. And Blake Lively actually said that she was inspired to take this role by her husband because Ryan Reynolds did that movie Buried, which I actually haven't seen, but I've heard it's very good. But he's literally just like buried alive and it's just him in this like coffin the whole time. And she said like he talked about how like challenging but very rewarding that was, and that's what made her want to take this role because she kind of wanted to try out something similar. So again, not a big fan of her, but I think she did well in this movie. I think like to be able to carry a movie where it's just you in one spot, like on this fucking rock pretty much the whole time, like I think that's incredibly impressive. And shout out to her for doing all of her own stunts. Like that's really awesome. So that's The Shallows, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. On Wednesday, we're going to be covering 47 Meters Down. There's two of those, 47 Meters Down and then 47 Meters Down Uncaged, which is kind of like completely unrelated and very different. So I'm not entirely sure why it has the 47 Meters Down name, but whatever. We're going to talk about both of them. So that will be on Wednesday. If you guys haven't yet given me a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to me, that's super helpful. Would just push me out into the algorithm and help us find other people to join our little community we have going on here. So until Wednesday, you guys know where to find me. It's horror_chronicles on TikTok and Instagram. I post every day, so you can keep up with me there. And until next time, watch more horror movies and stay spooky, my friends.